I said, well, good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the Dulles Area Transportation Association's sixth annual legislative roundtable. My first. I'm Ray Billings, and I'm the president and CEO of Data. First, I'd like to thank the panelists and our moderator for taking time out of their busy schedules to participate in this afternoon's discussion. I'd also like to thank the presenting sponsor of this event, Transurban, who not only is a staunch supporter of data, but also a transportation force, dare I say, for the common good here in Northern Virginia. With us this afternoon representing Transurban is their VP of Governance and Corporate Affairs, Elizabeth Kersey. She has agreed to say a few words prior to our panel discussion. Elizabeth?
Thank you, Ray. And I promise this is going to be very brief. This is the least interesting part of this event. I'm certain of it. But we are thrilled to sponsor events like this, especially for organizations like Data, who we know, like us, think long and hard and put a lot of work and time and energy into thinking about transportation solutions for our area. And so we love Data. We love the organization. We're very proud to be here today as a presenting sponsor. You all may be aware that we just opened a new 2.5 mile extension on 495 North. And we're very happy about that project for a lot of reasons, but one of them is bringing more travel choices to the McLean-Tysons area, and directly connecting the Dulles Toll Road with Transurban's 65 miles of express lanes. And I'm excited again to be here to hear from our leaders today and their vision for even more solutions for our transportation future. And with that, I will turn it back over to you, Ray. Thank you again for the opportunity.
Thank you, Elizabeth. And now I'd like to introduce our panelists and moderator. First, we have newly elected U.S. Representative James Walkinshaw from Virginia's 11th District. He's actually not in attendance right this second. He will be here around 5 o'clock to join the discussion. We also have Prince William County Board of Supervisors Chair at Large, Deshundra Jefferson, and Vice Chair of Loudoun County Board of Supervisors, Michael R. Turner, as well as Fairfax County Hunter Mill District Supervisor, Walter Alcorn. Our moderator today, Adam Tuss. Welcome to you, Adam. And as of this moment, it's all you.
I think I've done all six of these, Ray. So welcome to you, to the data conference here, the Legislative Roundtable. Hey, listen, I have really enjoyed my time helping out Data with stories, working with Luke and everyone behind the scenes, getting to do these events, and they've been really kind of eye-opening, I think, for a lot of us. So I'm going to encourage this. There's plenty of time here. I'm going to encourage everyone to speak your mind. I encourage you to make news, because this is recorded and I can sometimes go back and clip pieces and use them for news segments on Channel 4. You make my life a lot easier. If you want to be controversial, go for it. I will use that and and use it in a news piece. And anyone who is part of the discussion here or listening, I think we do have a little raise hand function down there. There's also a chat function, so don't be afraid to ask a question in the chat. I will monitor that as we go through this, and we'll just kind of keep this fluid and keep this moving. As for transportation, I can tell you that it is 100% job security for me. There is something to talk about all the time, especially in Northern Virginia. I live in Falls Church, so I know a lot about the kind of the ins and outs of what's going on. Most recently, I was just at a groundbreaking for a big mixed-use development that they are building over at the West Falls Church Station, and there's really a lot of stuff that's going on all throughout Northern Virginia. So exciting times. With that, I am going to open it up for just an introductory remark here from everyone. I believe the congressman is going to join us a little bit later. Supervisor Alcorn, are you on? I don't know if I can see you on here. Are you on? Don't know if he is on. Vice Chair Turner, I do see you. Why don't we start with you, and you can just give us kind of your opening up. There's Supervisor Alcorn. We'll come back to you in a second. Vice Chair Turner, why don't you just give us an opening remark about kind of where things stand right now from your perspective in terms of transportation and transit needs in Northern Virginia and where we go from here.
Well, thanks, Adam. I appreciate it. The big news is we had two big transportation issues that the board unanimously supported both of those on Tuesday night. We can talk a little bit more about it, but I believe, on Tuesday night became the first DMV jurisdiction to formally approve participation in the DMV Moves project. We're very excited to do that. We want to work out the financial details, and we can talk some more about that, but we did that. And then while I know it's probably not roads related, we've been working on it for 3 years, and we finally passed it unanimously on Tuesday. A recommendation for revised departure procedures off runway 30 at Dulles Airport. And the three recommendations, we can get into the details later on down the road, but the FAA requires a community consensus process. That's taken us 3 years, and we have full consensus from the community and from the Board of Supervisors unanimously to support the three recommendations we're making. So we're really hoping that the FAA will be positively, and MWA will be positively disposed to modifying slightly those departure procedures off runway 30. And that's the hot news from Loudoun County.
Ooh, I like that. There's a bunch to touch on there, and yeah, we'll definitely get into that, Vice Chair Turner, in just a little bit. All right, Supervisor Alcorn, good to see you. I've been seeing you a lot recently at different events. I saw you at Patsy's back table for the Fairfax Alliance for Better Bicycling the other day. What's going on in Fairfax County? What should people know?
Thank you, Adam. Appreciate and apologies for being a few minutes late. A lot of stuff going on as always, but and thank you, Adam, for moderating this. Yeah, in Fairfax County, we do have a number of transportation items that we're working on. One of the things I've been involved with quite a bit is transit funding. There was the regional DMV moves process, and well, we just heard about that a little bit in terms of what Loudoun's doing. I also served on the Virginia extension of that, the SJ28 subcommittee, which looked specifically at what Virginia's transit needs are and how we might fund them. So that's something, we're looking basically at $400 million annually that we need to find for transit going into the future. That's something that's going to be a big area of discussion, I think, for the region, but also in Richmond, starting in this new session of the General Assembly, which is just coming up. Aside from that, we have a number of other things we're doing at the very local level, a lot of active transportation projects that we're working on. We have a new active transportation plan that we're looking to get finalized next year that countywide combines our trails plan and our bike plan and identifies those areas where we still have gaps in our active transportation network. And the last thing I'll mention, and this is a fun one, is the Southside Express lane project, which of course was not included in the project list for by the Transportation Planning Board, which I am chairing for all of 3 months this year after Congressman Walkinshaw got his promotion to Congress. But we do have an expectation that there'll be more discussion with Prince George's County, with Maryland, and then, of course, with VDOT, Alexandria, and Fairfax County in the new year on that proposed project. So those are some of the highlights, briefly.
Are you making a little news there, Supervisor Alcorn? Should we expect some things to happen? Is that what you're saying?
Well, talking is always good. So I'm not sure that's always news, but yeah, there's a lot of work to be done still in discussions, which I look forward to over the coming year.
Yeah, a lot of moving pieces, and we can talk about the Wilson Bridge too as we go forward. Do you want to say I have my Fairfax County bike map right here?
Hey, all right.
Trails. How about
Excellent.
that?
I would recommend that. We also have a Spanish version if you're so inclined. So yeah, thank you.
This thing's amazing. If you guys don't have it, it opens up and does all the trails. I'm not going to show them all to you. You can get one, and it's incredible. So good stuff. All right, Supervisor Alcorn, thank you so much. Chair Jefferson, are you on? I'm not sure I see you on here on one of the tiles. Are you here? Ray, do we know if Chair Jefferson is here?
Yeah, Adam. No, Chair Jefferson is not quite here yet.
Okay,
And
no worries. We can continue, talking with Vice Chair Turner and Supervisor Alcorn. All right, let's go back to you, Vice Chair Turner, since you are up and ready. We were talking, okay, so obviously, like one of the biggest things that is going to have to be figured out with the DMV moves, you and Supervisor Alcorn both talked about it, is how this gets funded, what this looks like. I've asked the Metro general manager time and time again, does the region need some sort of sales tax, a gas tax? What is it that is going to be the funding mechanism that goes toward Metro? What would you say it is?
Um, I don't know what it is. What I do know is that one of the key outcomes of this upcoming legislative session will be to empower the local jurisdictions to participate in DMV moves and find a funding source. That probably means taxing authority, I suspect. What final form that's going to take is still kind of up in the air, but we do need the authority to be able to tax, to be able to raise this money, and ensure each individual Virginia jurisdiction can participate fully. I will throw this in. I don't know if Chair Randall will spank me when I come back from this meeting, but um, uh, I think this probably echoes her statement. We simply cannot ever afford again to go through the 3 year ago rating process from downstate that grab money from the Northern Virginia jurisdictions um, with virtually no warning. We can't do that again. This cannot be viewed as the piggy bank for the rest of the Commonwealth of Virginia. The DMV moves, when you get into the details, it's elegant and it's forward looking and it's a huge move forward for the DMV area. It standardizes signage, it standardizes route structures. And the good news is it basically fully funds transportation for the foreseeable future. 460 million with a 3% raise each year, I think, is a substantive funding mechanism, and I just really feel strongly that Richmond has to empower the local jurisdictions to make this a reality.
In other words, you're saying that the money that's raised here has to stay here.
Exactly right.
Yeah.
Exactly right.
What has been the issue in the past? The obviously it's a Commonwealth, right? The money goes everywhere, but a lot of money is generated here.
That's true, Walter. I'm going to throw that one over to you. You're probably more aware of it than I am.
Yeah, we just in Fairfax County, we just in the past week got a report from the Weldon Cooper Institute that looked at how much money we get back in the different jurisdictions in Northern Virginia from the state from what we send down. And it was up and down just a little bit across Loudoun and Fairfax and Arlington, Alexandria. But it basically it's about 50 cents on the dollar. Is what we're looking at. So that's general fund monies. Much of that is actually schools related, both in terms of what the state spends, what they bring back, and of course. Fairfax is in the same boat as or similar boat to Loudoun in terms of the overwhelming majority of funds for schools come from local sources, not from the state. That's not true in all parts of the Commonwealth. So it's not just a transportation issue where, frankly, we don't get back everything that we put in at the state level. One of the things that we're probably going to be looking at in Virginia in terms of a revenue source for transit. There are a number of smaller ones that may work in combination, but frankly, one of the things we're looking at is a potential increase in the sales tax. That's not a politically popular approach, but given our needs for transit, given Metro's capital needs going forward, and I do serve on the Metro board as well on behalf of the Northern Virginia Transportation Commission, which Vice Chair Turner also serves on. But also given the other needs that we have in Northern Virginia, transit needs, our local bus systems, and we have the Virginia Railway Express as well. which doesn't run through our areas, but it is an important transit system for Northern Virginia as well. So it's important as we look at our needs and how we're going to pay for them that we take into account all of those transit systems.
Supervisor Ackerman, well, you said sales tax there.
Yep.
I mean, obviously a lot of things to iron out there, but how does that work? Is that every time you buy something, then it go, a percentage is going toward Metro?
Yeah, the knock on sales tax is that it's regressive, and that's true. It's not a progressive tax. However, in Virginia, over the years, we have exempted groceries, other food items that basically do make it less regressive. So I would expect that anything we try to do on that front would take that into account, so that some of those well basic necessities that people have to pay for do not get taxed.
And I'm a reporter, so I have to ask, certain questions. But how do you make sure, being on the Metro board, it's an awful lot of money that comes in every year. How do you make sure that it is being spent appropriately and that it's not being wasted?
Well, it's a lot of work, to be honest. I mean, as you know, the Metro Board and senior management spend a lot of time uh, overseeing the system, the board overseeing the system, senior management running the system. And I think those of us in those positions, we do feel the responsibility. I certainly do as an elected official, the only elected official now on the Metro Board. I also have the fun experience of voting for tax rates. So there is a direct connection that I see between tax revenue and critical services like Metro. So yeah, it's Metro has come a long way. I mean, Metro's not perfect. But I think over the last few years, Metro's really turned a corner in terms of accountability, in terms of transparency, and how the money is spent, and also in terms of actually planning for the future in a responsible way. So that was one of the really important things in DMV moves, and it's still somewhat controversial, but the DMV moves process did not plan for rail expansion anywhere. The idea is how can we make the most of the existing rail system that we have? How can we take advantage of that, make it run better, make it safer, get more trains, and make it more efficient? And that in itself, I think, is a really good demonstration of responsible stewardship that we all need to practice.
Yeah, I think most people would agree that Metro is light years ahead of where it was. I would never tell Randy that to his face, but I think most people would agree that Metro is in a much better position. Vice Chair Turner, what's your thought on that? That's an awful lot of money that's going to, one group. How do you make sure it's all being spent appropriately?
My general philosophy, I think, as an elected official, is feed success. When we were discussing the DMV Moves initiative on Tuesday, Clark Mercer was at the table and he brought out some pretty interesting statistics about our metro system. Walter, correct me if I'm wrong. We are one of the top, if we're like in the top 10 metro systems in the country now, aren't we?
Actually,
We're-
we just got number one
yeah.
by the APTA, the Transit Association.
Yeah, our ridership is back up to well above pre-COVID levels. We've reduced fare evasion by 82% with the new fare turnstiles. Metro is a huge success story right now. It's incredibly successful, and this is when these are the kinds of programs you fund. These are the kinds of programs you get behind. And I really hope that we don't devolve down into the flow of money from Northern Virginia to the rest of the Commonwealth discussion that has happened in the past when we get into legislative session. I think a robust DMV Moves program and a robust transportation network of high first level transit options in the DC metro area really serves the Commonwealth in a positive way. And I would hope that the legislators would see that.
Yeah, well, Vice Chair Turner, do you see, we're going through a change, right? I mean, do you see the incoming administration, Governor Spanberger, Governor-elect Spanberger recognizing that?
I think so. I think so. I'm partisan because I was pretty happy with the election outcome. So I like to think that there's going to be a lot more receptivity to kind of the collaborative and cooperative approach between downstate and the Northern Virginia area. Every indication I have of Governor-elect Spanberger's approach and the new legislature indicates that that's going to be our default position going in is, let's get along here and be cooperative. And I think the DMV moves vision is going to translate very well. I think people are going to see a lot of benefit out of that.
Yeah.
Yeah, Adam,
Supervisor
if I
Alcorn,
could
yeah,
jump in
yeah,
on that a
please.
little bit. Yeah, I totally agree. And I think it's important to remember that transit is critical infrastructure in our region and actually across the Commonwealth for that matter. It's infrastructure we need to pay for. We may need to make sure that it's viable and it's sustainable. And I think that's going to go a long way to convincing folks, and together with some of the things Vice Chair Turner was just talking about. This is Metro's gone through a lot of internal reviews, improvements, efficiency improvements. Fare evasion is down. We have really pushed the envelope in terms of making the system better and as efficient as it can be before coming back and asking for more money. So this is, I think, the right time to do it, and I'm hopeful that as the General Assembly looks at this and the governor, that we'll be able to get what we need. That'll basically keep Metro going in the right direction during the coming decades.
Yeah, I once asked the great Bob Marburg of WTOP fame, what happens if Metro fails, and he told me that I don't think anybody wants to look and see what happens if Metro fails. So it has to keep going.
Well, Adam, you're exactly right. I mean, the reality is, we in Fairfax County, and I think other jurisdictions similarly, we basically, our economic development is centered around Metro Rail. I mean, our future plans in Reston, Herndon, Tysons, in other parts of Fairfax County, Springfield, basically, it all revolves around Metro Rail. Our transit-oriented development strategy is working, but transit has to work for that economic development strategy to work. So yeah, we're all in up here.
Excellent. You guys are the only two on, so I'm just gonna keep ping-ponging back between the two of you. Is this a strange time in between administrations? Are you do you have to hold back a little bit from what you would normally do until the new governor comes in?
I don't know. I don't feel that way.
I don't either.
At the local level, we're like always on, we
Yeah, yeah,
we just plow right through and
yeah.
whatever happens in Richmond, some of that's beyond our control. But we're definitely gearing up to have our voice in Richmond heard. So we're developing our legislative program, and I know Loudoun is working on that too, I believe.
Yeah, and I think, Adam, one of the things you're going to see probably in this legislative session, I suspect it will translate into all the transportation issues, but it's going to be a general theme because obviously out in Loudoun County, we have a lot of data center issues, a lot of land use issues, and power issues. Um, the general, and I sit on the Environment, Energy, and Land Use Committee for both the National Association of Counties and the Virginia Association of Counties. I'm the chair of both those committees. And I will tell you, those national and Commonwealth-wide county organizations, the theme is don't take the power away from us at the local level. Empower us to understand local decision making and local issues that are unique to us. And that theme is really going to, I think, resonate across the board in this session. And I'm encouraged that Governor Spanberger and the new legislators are sensitive to that. Um, these are turbulent times, and there's a knee-jerk reaction a lot of times, I think, with state government to say, oh my God, we got to solve this problem. Let's take power away from the local jurisdiction because we know the answer. I can't think of a worse thing to do at this time with this turbulent environment to disempower local jurisdictions. And that's where we're going to have a pretty thoughtful conversation with legislators. And that's the emphasis of our legislative agenda. Don't try and solve the problems. Give us the power to solve the problems ourselves and pay attention to what's going on, and then let's work together in a partnership. And I think that theme is going to resonate across the board, but certainly in the Northern Virginia transportation issues.
I see that Chair Jefferson has joined us. Good evening, Chair Jefferson. How are you?
Good evening. I apologize for the delay, a few technical difficulties.
I still don't know how to work Zoom, so don't worry about it. It's all good. Well, listen, we were just going around talking about a number of things, metro funding, DMV moves, all that stuff. I started out by just kind of having everyone tell us what they think is the big transportation priority in their area. Why don't you tell us a little bit about what's going on in Prince William County and what you guys are dealing with?
So, as you know, we are not a metro jurisdiction, but we have VRE. So I had a great conversation with Randy Clark last night. I'm going to give him a plug for the Metro store. He has this wonderful Christmas theme Metro sweater that my colleague Supervisor Ingrid and I were asking about. And we had a great conversation about making an interconnected system. We have VRE. It's soon going to be bidirectional. We're going to be able to offer more service. But it would be great if we can have better links with other regional transportation nodes, including the MARC, including Metro. So that's an idea that I would like to explore more and have conversations with my colleagues about that.
Excellent. We were talking a lot about how we fund Metro and what that looks like. Supervisor Alcorn went as far as to say that it probably will be a sales tax, at least in Fairfax County. I'm assuming you're on board with the DMV Moves project. How do you see that extra funding getting toward the Metro system and really the region's transit?
Honestly, there needs to be a dedicated funding source from Richmond, and I'm a member of NVTA, Northern Virginia Transportation Authority, and that's something that we've said for a very long time. Northern Virginia, like it or not, we are the economic region. The economic driver for the Commonwealth of Virginia. And moving people, getting people to work, getting people to places of employment is hugely critical. And Metro is a big part of that. Excellent.
All right, I'm going to throw this out to the three of you because we have a question from the chat. Doug, our old friend Doug Pickford, he says, does giving localities more power mean that eliminating the Dillon rule is going to be on the table? Forgive me, I do not know what the Dillon rule is. So anybody who wants to answer.
Oh, I'll jump in on that one.
Okay.
The Dillon rule is an oldie but a baddie. It's basically the idea is that local governments may only do what the General Assembly in the state explicitly authorize local governments to do. So it means unlike Maryland, which is a home rule state, and in Maryland, localities may not do what the state says they may not do. We have the flip side of that. So the Dillon rule has been an impediment to local governments in Virginia for decades. It is unlikely to be withdrawn or repealed in one full swoop. So I wouldn't think that. I haven't heard that being on the table. We would love to see that. I think many of us in local government, maybe all of us, but hopefully over time we're going to be able to see different pieces of it chipped away, and certainly more authority at the local level, particularly as it relates to our taxation capabilities, is really critical. I won't. It's maybe a little different in Loudoun and Prince William, but we struggle in Fairfax County with being as reliant on the real estate tax in particular as we are, and having more flexibility for tax reform would be a huge benefit to us at the local level.
Well, I'm actually going to chime in, and I agree with everything you said. And let me add on. When you think of Dillon Rule State, the easiest way to remember it really is Mother May I. We are a Mother May I state. Mother May I have the enabling authority to add, as Supervisor Alcorn said, additional taxing capabilities. Mother May I use this for us, data center is a hot topic. So energy load, when we're looking at land use cases, local government is closest to the people. We touch people in such a personal and such an intimate level. The property taxes they pay, the dreaded car tax, that's all us. Because we have a closer tie to people, we hear from them. We live in the community. That direct link is so important. And impediments to allowing us to govern to be as flexible and nimble as we can, that's a real problem, not just, in the big three counties, but across the Commonwealth.
Vice Chair Turner, do you want to weigh in?
Um, I don't. I agree with Walter. I don't see the Dillon rule going away anytime soon. That's a pretty biblical shift in thinking in the Commonwealth. But to my earlier point, it's a more innovative use of the Dillon rule. So if the state tells the local jurisdictions what they can and can't, what they can do, what we're asking them to do is widen the aperture. We're approaching some really unusual historic challenges. DMV moves is a huge opportunity here. Data center growth and power consumption in the Commonwealth is a huge issue that's going to be an issue for a long time. And it's radically different from jurisdiction to jurisdiction. So in the past, I think that the Richmond has been stingy with what it empowers local jurisdictions to do under the Dillon rule. And all I'm suggesting is let's widen the aperture a bit, be a bit more empowering and a bit more innovative in what we do, what we allow the local jurisdictions to do, and let's work together to figure out how that can be done better. Let's have a dialogue with local jurisdictions, say, what power do you need?
Good stuff. I heard data centers from two of you, and I was driving in Ashburn today, and I got to say, Vice Chair Turner, it is incredible. If no one has been there in a long time, and you drive out that way and just see what it looks like, I mean, they're going up everywhere. How is that changing, I guess, the tax structure of the county? How is that changing transportation? Because in addition to all of the new data centers that were going up, which I don't believe require a lot of people to actually operate, but a lot of the roads around them are changing as well. Like the county is exploding in that way.
You got a week? I can fill you in on what's going on out here in Loudoun County with data centers. I literally just an hour ago got off the phone with a 100-person seminar in Alberta, Canada, that wanted to talk about data centers and energy and what's going on. Um, and all I can tell you is I refer to, I've been on the road and the speaking circuit for 2 years over the paper I wrote 2 years ago about data centers and energy in Loudoun County. And I can tell you my theme is we're a mature data center market, the most mature data center market on planet Earth in eastern Loudoun County. We got 47 million square feet of data centers, 200 data centers. There's another 60 million square feet in the pipeline. I don't think 95% of that's going to get built. Our energy grid is constrained. There's not enough power for all our data centers right now. And I don't personally, this is my opinion, believe that's going to change anytime soon. The challenges we're facing out here in Loudoun County are unique in the world. We have more data centers than the next 5 US data center markets combined. And we're encountering things that no one has ever encountered before with the AI boom and the exponential demand for power. So we are, and that's where my underlying theme of empower the local jurisdictions to understand what's going on and make decisions about what's going on. I told the Joint Legislative Audit Review Committee last December, or prior to the report release on December 9th, I said, guys, do not try and come up with a one size fits all for the entire Commonwealth of Virginia when it comes to data centers and energy. That's impossible. Each local jurisdiction has unique problems, so you've got to address it like that. Um, we have taken steps. I introduced a motion on March 18th that was approved to not allow any more by right data center development in Loudoun County, meaning you buy a piece of land, it's permitted certain uses. If one of those uses is data center, then you can build that data center without getting any approval from the local jurisdiction. That's done. As of March 18th, you can't build a data center in Loudoun County without getting permission from the Board of Supervisors. We have legislation in our legislative priorities and our program going down to Richmond this session saying, please empower and allow local jurisdictions to make land application decisions based on power availability. Because we're a regulated monopoly state, Dominion has to provide power to all consumers, and they don't get a choice. And because we're a regulated state and Dominion must provide power to all consumers, no local jurisdiction has the legal authority as a board to deny an application because of a lack of power. That can't be one of the considerations. So I'm sitting here in the strange position here in Loudoun County where Dominion has told the data centers in Loudoun County, you are power constrained and will be for the next 2 or 3 years at least. If we build more data centers, we are further constraining that grid. We are further loading up demand on that grid. And yet I'm not allowed to use that as a basis to deny an application for a new data center. It's kind of a crazy situation. So we've got legislation asking the local, Richmond, to give us the power to consider power availability in land applications. And the lesson, I mean, our data centers are wonderful. Our property taxes are probably 25% lower than any other DMV jurisdiction right now. Our budget is a $4 billion budget. It normally takes us a month and a half, 2 months to do the budget. Last year, it took us 2 weeks. We filled up every pot we have to overflowing and had money left over. I mean, it's in 2025, we had a $950 billion operating budget. The full budget was $4 billion, but the operating budget to run the county was $950 million. We got $666 million in real property taxes from data center real property, and we got $229 million on taxes on the computers inside the data centers, for a total of $895 million against the $940 million county operating budget. Wow. So it's an amazing revenue generator. They support all of our nonprofits. They love working with our local nonprofit communities. We are in the process, we have instituted some, and we are in the process of implementing more performance standards. I have a one-pager that I developed as part of my other paper, which is 15 best practices for communities that are getting data centers. And it just says, if you're going to get data centers, before you say yes, think about this, think about this, think about this. Yeah. And that's kind of guiding our performance criteria.
I do feel like you could go on and on about
yes,
that.
Yes, I
could. I heard something wild the other day that actually, when we look at radar, this was from one of our meteorologists. When we look at radar now, there's actually like a heat bubble coming from like that area because of all the power that's being generated. Like the actual temperature there is a little bit different, which is wild to think about. That's actually happening.
Yeah, I know it was 40 all through Northern Virginia. While out here in Loudoun County, it was like 73 today. Only kidding.
Maybe not that much. Chair Jefferson, data centers have been an interesting topic in Prince William County. How do you feel about them?
Well, first of all, there are a couple of things I want to address when it comes to Prince William data centers. Siting has been the huge issue for us. Where do they belong? I will argue with anyone all day, all night that these are industrial buildings and they belong in areas for industrial use. They are not to be sited, in my opinion, near homes, near schools, near national parks and other sensitive cultural resources. The other issue for us is raising, let's call it the CMP tax, or that's computers and peripherals. Loudoun, I congratulate you. You guys have had a much higher rate than we have for a very long time. And when we finally raised the rate, there was a fear that if we raised the CNP rate, too aggressively, data centers would leave. Well, 0 of them have left and more are trying to come in. So for us, we're starting to see some of the benefits of having data centers, but we're also, before we start seeing some of the benefits, we saw a lot of the drawbacks. And and there are a lot of people who argue that what we're able to do in the way of tax cuts is still not enough. I mean, we lowered the car tax for the first time in 35 years. But people are still saying that we have too many. And we have a lot of data centers that are not fully built out and operational. So for me, it's a mixed bag. Right. I certainly think that they can help with lowering our tax rate. I'd like to get to that $4 billion number, However, in the meantime, I am encouraging people to be careful and be thoughtful about where data centers go. Where do they belong? And make sure that you tax them at the appropriate rate. If you're going to have them, make sure that you're getting your money's worth.
Yeah. Supervisor Alcorn, I know not as many in Fairfax County, but there are some.
Yeah, not as many. And what you just heard from my two colleagues is a great example of why local government should be empowered with these land use decisions, because obviously very thoughtful, very much reflecting local interests, local concerns. And yeah, I share all those sentiments that I heard. We don't have as much land in Fairfax County that's amenable to these, but we are looking at putting them in industrial areas. We definitely don't have the size and scale that some of our other jurisdictions in Northern Virginia do, but it is definitely a part of our economy. And the point about electricity usage is it's relevant not just to those of us in Northern Virginia, but it's really the whole DMV and the grid, the Mid-Atlantic. I mean, this is an electricity challenge that we're seeing really throughout the region, the larger region, and we're in for some challenging times in terms of electricity pricing and scarcity. So yeah, that's stay tuned for that one.
Yeah, it's going to be fascinating to watch. This comment from the chat from Raj, he says, data centers do not have jobs. Building data centers instead of commercial buildings means everyone who lives in Ashburn has to commute out for their job, burdening the transportation system instead of live, work, and play type sustainable growth. There probably is something to that. We're trying to do so much transit-oriented development. And if you use all the land for things like data centers, well, then, you're not really being transit oriented in the truest sense of the word in living, working, and playing. I promise this is not the data center show to everybody who's watching. I just find it particularly fascinating. And it is. I mean, like something like 70 to 80% of the world's internet traffic comes through Northern Virginia. So it's really fascinating. Okay. The other day, 2 days ago, I was working on a story and it was going very well. And then President Trump said that Dulles International Airport is terrible and it needs a makeover. And my story got changed and I got sent out to Dulles Airport and I had to talk to people about the president's comments. So since this straddles the line between Loudoun and Fairfax County, Vice Chair Turner, let me ask you, what do you think about the airport? Does it need upgrades? Do you love the people movers? Tell me what you think.
Um, I'm agnostic about the people movers. They work at Dulles. I don't have any problem using the people movers. I never have. I know they've had a couple of incidents recently. I think those are the first two incidents I've ever heard the people movers had. Maybe they just didn't make the news before. I think Dulles functions just fine. I think United's building a new terminal that I think is going to be robust and very exciting. It's one of the busiest airports on the eastern seacoast, and I think it functions just fine and serves the DMV area just fine. I'll be honest with you. Hell, let's get controversial. This is about getting Jeffrey Epstein off the headlines. That's what it's about.
Yeah.
Period.
Well, I'm not going to touch that one. Supervisor
Yeah, I
Alcorn.
figured you wouldn't. I figured you wouldn't, and I threw it out there, but there you have it.
Supervisor Alcorn, I will say that there was some legislation that was introduced in Congress to put President Trump's name on the building, so maybe there's something to that. But
yeah, that's been another one that's floated around out there for a while. Not a pretty one, but yeah. I mean, the point is that Dulles Airport is. Vice Chair Turner's right. I mean, the airport is working well. It also has a long-term development plan that it is moving forward with. And so I think, yeah, sure, the airport could be better in different spots. I'm agnostic as well on the mobile lounges, but let's face it, Dulles Airport is positioned better than really any other airport on the East Coast for growth. And so,
Here, here. Yep.
and let's keep that in mind. So, yeah, it's going to be going through some growth pains. It's going to, it's not perfect, but boy, I am so happy we have it here and really look forward to its continued growth over the coming decades.
Yeah, Chair Jefferson, I mean, it's probably the easiest airport for a lot of people in Prince William County to use until Manassas Regional Airport becomes, starts getting commercial flights. That's going to happen at some point, right?
I really love you for bringing that up. Yes, we are going to have commercial flights out of Manassas Airport. That's actually the city of Manassas, but it would bring more transportation options to the region. For me, I actually fly out of National unless I'm going abroad. In Prince William County, depending on where you're at, you're either closer to National or closer to Dulles, but I like having both airports so close by. And this region, talking about Manassas Airport, I was meeting with the person or the company that was looking to do commercial flights. And they mentioned we're actually underserved. Market this large, we're actually underserved. So I appreciate having different options.
Excellent. let's talk about I-95 a little bit, Chair Jefferson, because it just continues to be a behemoth. It is the main street of the East Coast, right? And it's got to move a lot of traffic. What is the key to get that unlocked? What do you see as something that really needs to change with 95?
Honestly, is what I was mentioning earlier when I first joined the call, having better interconnection between our public transit options. Now, I used to work in DC. I prefer taking public transportation, but that's because I've also lived in a city before here. I lived in New York City for many years. That's where I went to school, and I'm used to taking public transportation. We've got to find ways to get people out of their cars. And it's harder the further out you get from DC. It's harder to get people out of their cars. People like having the flexibility. So from my vantage point, I'd like to build up the VRE. I'd like to have better interconnections with Metro, with VRE, with other regional transportation partners so that we can get people off of 95. And, I've had to take the Lexus lanes from time to time. They're expensive. People, the further people are coming out here and they're even going further south. It's because it's where they can afford to live. But
Yeah.
when you start factoring in those long commutes, what kind of quality of life do people really have?
Yeah, affordability definitely a big issue. I see that Congressman Walkinshaw has joined us. I think he only joined us now because he decided to get around the controversial topics that we were just talking about. But we are going to welcome him here and remind him to go off of mute, which he's done. Very good job, sir. Congressman, we've just been going around talking about, what everybody sees as the main kind of transportation issues that they're dealing with right now, getting great perspective from Prince William, Loudoun, Fairfax counties. From a congressional perspective, what are you seeing?
Yeah, thanks, Adam, and thank you all for having me. Really excited to be with you all. And first, I just want to say thank you to the Dulles Area Transportation Association for your many years of incredible work. And I know all of us here share the value that transportation is really a basic civil right and critical for folks. Before I was elected to Congress, I chaired the TPB. I see Supervisor Alcorn, who took over for me there. I also chaired the Access for All committee, and I was reminded of a conversation I had with a young woman who, in our community, living with multiple disabilities, mobility challenges, and she described for me the difference it made in her life when 20 linear feet of sidewalk were constructed in front of her home in her neighborhood that allowed her to get to a metro bus stop. And it opened up quite literally an entire new world of opportunity for her. So I know that's exactly those are the kind of opportunities that you all make happen for so many folks in the Dulles corridor. And obviously, the first mile, last mile connections are critical to the success of the Silver Line and the Dulles Corridor, and the work that all of you do to make that a reality is really important. And look, in a couple just kind of topics that I'll talk about that are on our plate in Congress that are maybe of interest. Obviously, and this predates my election, but we've been engaged in a battle related to the grant funding in the IIJA that the Trump administration, attempted to freeze funding for many projects and programs, and that's been kind of partially overturned in the courts and fits and starts. But I think that battle is going to continue, and I think it's relevant. It's a relevant principle beyond just the specific projects and programs funded by the IIJA. If an administration can simply cancel or refuse to fund projects that have been funded and approved and appropriated dollars by Congress, it really will be impossible for any local jurisdiction or state or transportation entity or agency to plan their projects moving forward. So, I'm going to continue to fight hard against that effort and speak out against it. The big legislative agenda item right now related to transportation is obviously the reauthorization and the current authorization expires September 30th of 2026. So the Transportation and Infrastructure Committee has begun work to draft a new surface transportation reauthorization bill. Obviously, they're facing the same challenge that have been faced in recent authorizations, that revenues from the gas tax nationally, just as they are here in Virginia, are declining. So there isn't enough money to fund even the maintenance elements of the reauthorization that have been traditionally funded. We're in the same situation that the Commonwealth of Virginia is in, that everybody recognizes. We need a user fee model that is sustainable long term, but the political barriers have thus far been too high to surmount. So I would say there is, probably a less than 50% chance that that reauthorization passes. I think it's more likely that we'll see perhaps temporary extensions of the existing authorizations. And I'll just note, even though the IIJA was, a significant step forward, it's still, even with that level of funding, we would have, by many experts' analysis, a $1.2 trillion transportation infrastructure investment shortfall in this country. We just have a huge gap between where we are and where we need to be in terms of transportation funding across this country, even with the investments that were made in the previous administration, if they're able to move forward with those. So we have huge challenges. A couple of things that are priorities for me that I'm going to be advocating for in that reauthorization. FTA Section 5310, which funds mobility for seniors, veterans, and folks with disabilities. I know really important to the Dulles Area Transportation Association, making it easier for those smaller first mile, last mile projects to get funded. Traditionally, the Transportation Authorization Bill has been focused around, funding big highway bills or big road construction projects, and that's still going to be part of it. But we have to be more nimble and more innovative in recognizing that for those large projects to succeed, or for us to maximize the benefit of our existing infrastructure, we can sometimes get a better bang for our buck with smaller first mile, last mile projects. And then last, having more opportunities for flexible pass-through funding for entities like COG, like TPB, like NVTC, like the Dulles Area Transportation Association, directly funded by the federal government, so that those organizations can innovate at the local level. It's hard to get access to those kind of flexible funds that allow those folks at the regional and local level to really innovate based on the needs of their community. So I'm going to be advocating for that as well. But I'll wrap up there, Adam. I know we have a lot of great folks to hear from, and appreciate y'all having me.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, you're mentioning funding. Obviously, a lot of funding challenges going on the Hill. We were talking about how the DMV Moves initiative gets funded. And I specifically asked, is this something like a sales tax, a gas tax? Supervisor Alcorn hinting toward maybe a sales tax is the right answer. You sound like a gas tax doesn't really work anymore. What do you think about that?
Well, this is easy for me to pontificate on this now, because I won't have direct responsibility for it. But look, I think writ large across Virginia and across the country, I think everyone knows that the logical replacement or supplement for the gas tax is a vehicle miles travel tax. And I usually tell people we already have one in Virginia. It's an optional program for those of us who have EVs or low emission vehicles. You can enroll in mileage choice, and based on, you install a transponder in your car, and you can pay a lower EV fee if you drive fewer miles. It's a de facto vehicle miles traveled tax. So I think that is the solution writ large in Virginia with respect to SJ 28 and funding for transit. Look, I think when you think about it regionally from a Northern Virginia perspective, even though it's the well that we continue to go back to, I think a sales tax is probably the cleanest and simplest option. A couple challenges that folks I think are going to confront. I think it's likely that and next year, Governor Spanberger will sign legislation giving local governments the authority to implement a 1% sales tax for school construction. And I think you'll see a lot of folks interested in that, either to build new schools or to renovate their existing schools. So I think you're going to have some challenges if you're looking at 1% for school construction and another 0.5% or 1% for transit. So that's going to have to be, a dialogue, and they're going to have to think about that as well. When I was on the Board of Supervisors, I felt, and I still felt, whatever direct funding mechanism we develop to fund transit, we need to make sure that we accommodate more than just Metro, even though Metro is obviously the biggest and most important, but we have other important transit agencies in the region. And B, that we generate enough revenue that we can reduce some of the pressure on our general funds and on real estate taxes. Because I think if you look at the out years, I can speak, for Fairfax, and Supervisor Alcorn, I think, would agree, the bills that are mounting are going to create significant pressure on our general funds and hamper our abilities to do other things. So you need to be able to offset that and make the case to people that, while yes, you might pay a little bit more to fund transit, you're going to pay less ultimately in terms of your real estate taxes if we can implement it.
Got it. Thank you for that answer. Great stuff.
And Adam, can I jump in here on
this? Yeah,
please.
Please.
Just quickly, I totally agree with Representative Walkinshaw, and you can see why I'm so proud to have him as my congressman now. So he's very knowledgeable and committed to doing the right things. One quick thing, and then I actually do have to drop off. I've got to get to the NVTC Executive Committee after this, but totally agree on the vehicle miles travel tax. Virginia does have such a tax. One of the things that we looked at and actually recommended be considered as part of the SJ28 process is a regional or local version of that vehicle mile travel tax. But it doesn't generate nearly the same amount of money that the sales tax
for EVs and low emission.
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly. So just to have a local or regional pairing of what's already at the state level. So yeah, that is actually one of the things under consideration. We'll see what the General Assembly comes up with. It may well be some combination. It may not have the sales tax involved at all, but given after looking at the numbers and the alternatives, it well might. But let's see what comes up from the General Assembly. But again, I have to run.
Hold on. I got to ask you real quick before you go.
All right.
Do we need to build the express lanes between Springfield and the Wilson Bridge? What do you say, Supervisor Alcorn?
So that's part of the issue that came before TPB in October. It's part of the express lanes. Frankly, it really needs to go not just from Springfield to the Woodrow Wilson Bridge. It needs to go into Maryland. It needs to go into Prince George's County. And that dialogue with the Prince George's folks, with the folks in Maryland, and then of course with VDOT, and I think leadership with our new governor and the new governor's team in Virginia, hopefully will help that conversation move forward. So I'm looking forward to seeing a more comprehensive and also, frankly, a transit-friendly approach to that whenever that dialogue gets going, hopefully here in the next few months.
Thank you for putting that on the record. I appreciate
All right.
that. Good stuff.
All right. Thank you, Adam. Thank you all.
Have a good meeting, Supervisor Alcorn. Well, Vice Chair Turner, I saw you kind of nodding at that. I know it doesn't really touch Loudoun, but all the projects around here are interconnected. You believe that the express lane should be extended?
Based on, I came on TPB right at the tail end of that conversation that essentially, I believe, punted that decision. Representative Walkinshaw can probably correct me if I'm wrong on that, but There was quite a bit of controversy of whether we include that or not, and I think the decision was made to defer that. Yeah, I think it does. I think transportation networks are holistic networks, and they've got to be synergistic with all of the involved stakeholders. And to arbitrarily end an improvement of a road partway through a network makes no sense to me. So I'm one step shot beyond being a layman on this issue because it's way out of Loudoun's jurisdiction. But based on the discussions that I heard, I thought that I want to say it was VDOT made some a fairly good case for extending it into Maryland. But
Yeah, one of the things Chair Randall, she's been on this legislative session before. She talks about how difficult it can be to work with Maryland. And I'm not trying to point fingers at Maryland, but you guys have obviously talked about another bridge for years. Talk about some of the challenges, specifically if you have, two opposing parties who are running the states. That's got to be difficult.
Yeah, it is. And yeah, you're right. The Route 28 extension bridge across the Potomac has been on the docket for years and years and years, long before I got elected. Um, every time I raise that issue, somebody in Loudoun County just rolls their eye and goes, "Yeah, that's never going to happen." And I have the impression it has to do with the land at the Maryland terminus of what would be the bridge, and that the Maryland is fairly intransigent about how to do that. I honestly, Chair Randall has a much better feel, I think, for the working relationship with Maryland. I have had numerous conversations with county supervisors and chairs and county chairs in Montgomery County and Frederick County and those kinds of areas around data centers. And they've been very good conversations. So I have very little information to be able to talk about that.
Gotcha. Congressman Walkinshaw, what do you see from that perspective? Obviously, our congressional delegation really tries to look out for this region, but things do get kind of like I don't want to say partisan, but they get territorial, right? We all kind of look out for our own spaces.
Yeah, I can. I mean, obviously we are cooperators and at times competitors. Steny Hoyer and I had a good conversation today about the FBI headquarters, and that issue is still out there and live. And I think with respect to transportation and I wrestled with the South Side Express Lane project during my time as TPB chair, and my view is it should be in the visualized 2050 plan, which doesn't mean isn't approval for it to be built, right? It's the approval that the process could move forward and perhaps in the future it could be built. It is a particularly challenging project because VDOT is proposing to essentially construct a pretty significant expansion of the Beltway into the state of Maryland, right? It's not like the American Legion Bridge on the other side where we're saying, Maryland, can you extend it on your side? The proposal is VDOT will come in and extend the express lanes on the Virginia side and into Maryland. And obviously, for that to happen, Maryland has to be on board. They have to accept that could happen and even have some enthusiasm for it. And we just never got there. And it's the kind of thing that really required robust conversations at the highest level, governor to governor. And one of my frustrations in the many conversations I had about it over more than a year is we just never could get engagement from Governor Youngkin on it. It just wasn't an interest of his for whatever reason, or he didn't want to take the time to try to engage with Maryland at the highest levels to see whether there was a path forward. And I think the project has real opportunity to deliver dedicated funding for transit, even potentially for the Blue Line Metro extension that I think most all of us in the region would like to see. Those of us, folks in the Dulles corridor know that we might not have had phase two of the Silver Line were it not for the dedicated revenue from the Dulles Toll Road. And we have an opportunity, maybe not a perfect analog, but an opportunity with the South Side project to look at, could you generate a recurring stream of revenue that perhaps you could even bond against to make significant transportation improvements, including to Metro? And my view was even though I had concerns about the project and a lot of questions that would still need to be answered, I don't think we should rule that out before we fully explore it.
And you think Metro should ultimately go across the bridge?
Yes. Yes.
Excellent.
Absolutely. Yeah. I just want ultimately to be in my lifetime or mine or your lifetime, Adam. I don't want ultimately to be 200 years from now.
Well, I mean, a lot of people didn't think we'd see the Silver Line. So,
That's
I mean,
right. Yeah.
it was killed, it was brought back to life, it was killed, so on and so forth. Chair Jefferson, I haven't forgot about you. We were talking about 95, and we're talking about express lanes here. Can you give us any sort of update on what's happening with the 95 express lanes? There's been a lot of talk about those being reversible. I'm sorry, going one in each direction. Right now they're reversible. Will we have, do you believe, one lane going one way, one lane going the other way at all times?
So first I want to jump in what you guys were saying, because I'm also on TPB and I'm on NVTA, and I'm hoping with the new governor, we have a new approach to working with our regional partners, including Maryland. I think that Governor-elect Spanberger will be able to steer the conversation in a different way. And I'm glad that the project was deferred because I want her to have that opportunity. Now, I-66, that is bidirectional. And it was set up to be bidirectional by design. We're having conversations about doing the same for 95 and what that would look like. I don't know how much I'm able to say, but, there are some designs that may make that possible. And that's something that we really, need. Further south and further out the Beltway, I-95 Express has now gone down to Fredericksburg, which is a big deal for us. Because we have people, from Prince William County who are also going in the other direction and trying to get to work. I think one of the things as a county, going back to conversation earlier, started with Vice Chair Turner is, we're really looking to bring more employment centers out here so that not everyone has to, get on a road, get on a train to go to work.
Yeah.
And
No, Chair,
down here, for opportunities.
Chair Jefferson, please speak at will about the plans for the, one lane in each direction on 95. Please, let's break some news. Come on, what do you got?
I think that would be up to VDOT to talk about, I've had conversations with them last year.
Excellent. Yeah. And I know that Jeff McKay was he's been a real big supporter of having that happen as well. So do you think there is some momentum toward that though?
I mean, certainly there's a lot of interest. I mean, any way that we can move more people more efficiently. I've been on the parking lot called I-95, and it's because I had a job that required me to sometimes get in very early, get in very late. And we didn't have a robust enough, and I also say we don't have a robust enough public transportation system coming down to Prince William, which I was about to interrupt. I'm like, if you guys are talking about blue line extensions, bro, Congress, let's talk. Don't forget about us. And I have to say, the congressman, he is a native of Prince William County, so please don't forget us.
Where would it go to? Where would it go to, Chair Jefferson?
If I had, there are some people who are like, we'd love to see the orange line go out, but call it bias, but I'd love to see the blue line come down to North Woodbridge. We're going to have a lot of exciting development coming. We're going to have a lot more density. That's an area I would love to see as Metro access, and everyone keeps telling me it's a pipe dream, but you know what? Everything's a dream.
Yeah.
Everything's a dream until it becomes reality.
Well, I'll send this clip to Randy Clark. We'll see what he has to say about that.
And again, I talked to him last night. He was throwing a little cold water on my dreams, but a girl could still have hope.
For sure. I've got a question from the chat coming up in just a second, but since we're talking about Metro, Congressman, I do want to ask you while we have you, your, dare I say, mentor, Congressman Conley, I mean, he was the biggest supporter of the Silver Line. What do you think he would say, and what do you think will be the vision of the Silver Line as we go forward? It's amazing when you drive out the toll road and you see all the development that's already started.
Yeah, and look, he was deservedly incredibly proud. I mean, he spent his entire career from his first campaign for the Board of Supervisors in 1995 talking about rail to Dulles, as it was called at the time, that wasn't called the Silver Line at the time. And, as you know and have documented in your work, it had, many, many ups and downs and downs and downs and downs and ups and ups and ups over decades. And I think he always felt like, we were building something not for next year or 5 years or even 10 years from now, but we were building something for the next 50 to 100 years in the corridor. And I think, we're seeing that vision slowly come together. But none of us on this call will live to see that vision fully come together, because I think we will have just incredible dynamic change and growth throughout the quarter. And Supervisor Alcorn dropped off, but the success of Reston for Fairfax County in terms of attracting new businesses and new corporate locations and headquarters has been far beyond, I think, what anyone expected. Almost every day, I talk to businesses and government contractors and technology companies that are moving their offices and their headquarters to Reston because it's where their employees want to be. It's just been a huge success story. Tyson's continues to slowly and in fits and starts improve. And I now, when I'm in Tyson's and walking around or driving through, and now just to see, I can say this now because I'm 43, but to see young people in their 20s like walking around and going to their part, some of my staff now in their 20s live in Tyson's and walk around to the bars and restaurants and parks, and that's exactly what Jerry wanted to see from Tyson's and that entire corridor. So, I think it's going to continue to be just a tremendous success and economic engine for Fairfax and the entire region and Commonwealth. We obviously have to make sure that Metro, it has the funding that it needs. I'm going to work hard on the federal level to do that, but I think there's nothing but good things coming for the Silver Line in that corridor.
Yeah, Vice Chair Turner, just briefly, I was out at the Ashburn Metro Station today for a story. It's starting to grow, but just like the Congressman was talking about, you don't really plan for it for today. It has to grow. So do you see that continuing? Is it accelerating? What's happening with the growth around the metro stations?
Oh yeah, I think all the numbers around the Ashburn Metro Station are good numbers. And we've got some room to grow there. It's got tons of potential. Both the Loudoun Gateway Station and the Ashburn Station, I think, are going to thrive. It's ideally suited. I'm surprised, frankly, that it took this long to get the Silver Line built, because I think Representative Connolly's vision was the right vision 20, 30 years ago, and it has come to fruition, but we got a long way to go. But there's just too much going on out here for it not to thrive, and I think we're doing great. I'm very pleased with the progress we've made.
Excellent. Want to remind everyone that we do have a chat going on. So if you have a question, I am actively monitoring the chat and can get a question out. There's one here from Peter. He says, I'm not aware of any studies to provide insight, but anecdotally, commuting from Western Loudoun to Dulles or DC, I'd estimate 30 to 50% of the cars on the road are from West Virginia. Is there any connection to leaders there to encourage shared rides or a connection to the Loudoun commuter bus? Vice Chair Turner, I guess that's more in your jurisdiction. What do you think about that?
We have just instituted several bus pilot projects from key strategic areas. I cannot remember if one of the new pilot routes is from West Virginia. We do get a lot of commuting from West Virginia into Loudoun County. Cost of housing in Loudoun County is what's driving those kinds of commutes. We now have a regular bus schedule that comes down Route 15 out of Frederick County. And I believe we have one coming up from the south into Loudoun County as well, one of the new routes. I'm not aware of any formal discussions with the West Virginia leadership. I would be shocked if our General Services Director has not dealt with his corollary contact in West Virginia, because it is a major commuting area coming down Route 9. I'm just not aware of any formal discussions, but I am aware that we're constantly evaluating our bus routes and our long haul bus routes and our local bus routes to accommodate continuing growth here in Loudoun County.
All right. Congressman Walkinshaw, wanted to ask you, since you came on before or after we were talking about it, The president made some comments about Dulles Airport the other day about how he wants to see it change. How did you take that?
Um, it was one of those days where President Trump made a series of bizarre bizarre statements on a number of different topics, and I kind of put this one in that category. Look, obviously, we've had two incidents in recent weeks related to the people movers, and that's something that obviously needs to be addressed. But I don't agree with President Trump's characterization of Dulles Airport writ large. I think it's actually a beautiful airport. It takes a little bit longer to, get to your gate when you go to Dulles Airport, but that's because it's a large international airport that provides expansive service and connections to almost anywhere in the globe. And, my colleagues in Congress have jammed National Airport with as many flights as possible to make it easier for them, oftentimes to get their flights home. And it's true, you get through National Airport a little bit faster, but we also know that you're much more likely to have a delay if you're flying out of National Airport because Congress has jammed it full of flights. So look, I'd like to see a long-term plan from the airport's authority to progress beyond the people movers. But I don't share the president's broader characterization of the airport. Neither do the airlines or customers, because it has had an incredibly successful post-pandemic period, and I think will continue to succeed as long as the region continues to succeed.
He did say the Saarinen terminal was beautiful, though. He did say that. So there
That's
was
right. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, question from the chat here, and we could just go around the horn here. Chair Jefferson, we'll start with you. This is from our friend Doug Pickford. He says, do you foresee improving radial north-south improvements for transit options in the region? If so, what is on the table? I'm guessing you would focus more on VRE.
Right now, VRE is the most logical and feasible node for us. And that is something, getting bi-directional service, I think would improve traffic on 95, get more people hopefully out of their cars and be able to move more people from, north to south. Again, it's not just Prince William, we are growing. But further south of us, Stafford County, city of Fredericksburg and Spotsylvania, they're growing, quite rapidly too. And that contributes to greater congestion in the region.
Yeah. Vice Chair Turner? Oh, go ahead, Congressman. Go ahead.
No, I don't want to cut Mike off.
No, I didn't have a whole lot of input on north-south transit.
Yeah,
So,
it's such an important topic for us long term, and obviously the region and much of our transportation network was designed at a time when almost everybody commuted from the west to the east, right? My grandmother, who worked at the Pentagon in the 1960s, commuted from Falls Church to the Pentagon, and obviously a lot of folks still make that kind of commute, but increasingly, folks that I represent in central or southern Fairfax County are commuting to Tysons, Reston, or Ashburn each and every day, headed north. And our transit systems, especially, aren't well designed for that, at least in Fairfax. When I joined the Board of Supervisors in 2019, we had a bus route that we initiated to go from Burke to Tysons, and we were optimistic that that would provide a service that a lot of folks wanted. We never could get the ridership on it. I just think the culture of driving to Tysons was so strong. I do think that the opening of the express lanes north of Tysons and the added bus service that is available along with that could help us to open up and get more people on buses and transit throughout that corridor. But more broadly, as Chair Jefferson said, and I was VRE board chair a couple years ago, and we have just really exciting transformational plans to expand VRE service hours with more trains and shorter headways that I think will really be a huge difference alongside of transforming rail in Virginia and the Long Bridge project. I think 5 to 10 years from now, you could have double the ridership on VRE that we have today. Folks headed both from the west and the Manassas line and from the south and the Fredericksburg line through Prince William.
Yeah, and there's also talk about VRE going into Maryland and vice versa, right? I mean, MARC trains coming into Virginia, all of that.
Yeah, that's right. And, you know, we looked at that a lot on VRE, and, you know, I think we maintain an openness to that. What our research of our, you know, kind of our customers and riders and potential riders in Virginia, there wasn't a lot of appetite for Virginians to go to Maryland. I don't mean that as a slight to Maryland, but just if you look at the job centers, um, there are not a huge number of people commuting from Virginia into Maryland along the MARC line. There was more demand for the other direction, and obviously we're open to that. But I think the question for us at VRE has always been, you know, can you justify the infrastructure costs to accommodate that based on the potential ridership? And right now, we see the potential ridership growth, to Chair Jefferson's point, in Virginia, you know, points south and west of the Beltway.
Yeah, the ridership would definitely have to be there. All right, we only have about 10 minutes or so left, probably less than that. So I want to do a little lightning round with all of you guys. I'm just going to throw out a word, and you tell me what you think needs to improve or whether you think it's great. Chair Jefferson, we'll start with you. Buses.
Improve.
Congressman?
Well, I don't want to cheat here. I was going to say great, but can improve, but I'll say improve.
Vice Chair Turner?
We're doing a lot of work with our buses in Loudoun County, and I think we've made some real neat strides forward. We've also started an interesting microtransit project in Leesburg, which is basically a county-run Uber service. So you just call the number and pick up the microtransit, and that's working very well so far. Very high demand.
Very cool. All right, Chair Jefferson, e-bikes and e-scooters.
That's hard to say in one word.
No, you don't have to say in one word. You can use more. I'm using the short words. You guys.
We don't use them much. Not our market, or we're not their market.
Gotcha. Congressman?
Yeah, I think there's untapped potential in Northern Virginia. You know, I've represented George Mason University for 6 years now, and we have a great program in the county where e-bike and scooter micromobility providers can get a permit to operate in the county. They have to commit to, you know, making sure that they contain and clean up their scooters or e-bikes, but it works very well around George Mason and Tyson's and other parts of the county. So I think there's more opportunity to do that in Northern Virginia.
Vice Chair Turner?
Um, Great potential with regulation. I was sitting at a stoplight the other day, facing a major collector, 4 lanes, 2 lanes in each direction. I saw a guy go by on a scooter with no helmet in the left-hand lane of the major traffic flow, right in the middle of the lane. And I looked at it and I thought, you've got to be out of your mind. You may not survive till sundown. And I really think that they've got real potential, but you have to build the infrastructure to support them. I think, frankly, the lane infrastructure in downtown DC is pretty conducive to scooters and personal vehicles. So I think they have great potential for multimodal transit, but the local jurisdictions have to regulate them.
Good stuff. Go ahead, Chair Jefferson.
Go on.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, I think what you're saying, Mike, because like, you know, we're more of exurbs. We really don't have the density. And that's why I was saying that, you know, we're not their market.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair.
Maybe not yet. Electric vehicles, Chair Jefferson.
I drive one.
Okay. Congressman?
Yeah, I was an early adopter. I've had an EV driver since 2010, I think, and certainly a lot easier now than it was back then in terms of charging infrastructure and range. So, yeah, I think we're going to continue to see growth in the EV market, certainly in Northern Virginia.
Chair Turner?
Also, just less
Oh,
maintenance. You don't have to spend money on. I always tell my buddies, it's like if you don't care about the climate thing, no problem. But all of us can agree we don't want to spend money on oil changes, getting
right.
the brakes changed, all of that stuff you don't have to worry about anymore.
Chair Turner?
I had a plug-in Prius since 2012. I love it. It's like the best car I've ever had. Unfortunately, where I live doesn't have plugs, so I don't get to use the plug feature at all. If I go to Clyde's once in a while, I can plug in there if I climb through the bushes and find the plug. Um, I will drag it back to data centers for a second. I believe the future of the electric power grid in this country is a distributed energy network that is reliant on micro sources of power. So envision you plug your car in, it becomes fully charged, and then it discharges onto the grid in a regulated way to stabilize the overhead power grid. I think electric vehicles right now are a drain on the grid, but I think if they're integrated into a fully distributed energy grid nationwide, there could be a ton of potential for how electric vehicles can be used.
Fascinating. And the last one here, it's the topic of the year for sure. AI. Chair Jefferson, what do you think?
Needs more regulation.
Congressman, I'm sure there's plenty of talk about that on the Hill.
Yeah, I was just I literally just came this afternoon from a discussion actually with Congressman Subramaniam. He and I did a fireside chat on, among other things, AI adoption in the federal government. And there's obviously a lot of potential there. Right now, the federal government, just to give one example, CDC has a program called the National Syndromic Surveillance Program that captures and anonymizes data from emergency rooms across the country to predict outbreaks of infectious diseases.
Wow.
And that's a challenge we're facing, unfortunately, with measles outbreaks, but that's AI that's the federal government is using right now, and there are other examples of that. Obviously, we have to pair that innovation and adoption with safety and responsibility, especially in the federal government, because the American people are entrusting us with their data, with their information, with their health and safety and well-being. And we have to always have human accountability and a human touch in that process. But I think it can make us more effective and more efficient as a government if adopted correctly.
Chair Turner?
Um, from a philosophical answer, I think it has enormous potential that has real philosophical and ethical implications that are being outstripped by the advantages of AI. People are very focused on the convenience of AI, and I don't think I don't think we have culturally shifted to some of the downsides of culturally and ethically of a rapid explosion of AI. From the Loudoun's perspective, the AI is driving the energy crunch in Loudoun County. A normal data rack inside a data cabinet uses 10 to 14 kilowatts when I first wrote my paper a year and a half ago. Now it's probably up to 50 to 60 kilowatts per rack, and I've heard data center experts talking about 1 megawatt data racks inside data cabinets in computers. It's easily going to be a tenfold increase in energy use by data centers that's being driven by AI. So it has enormous energy implications.
Yeah, we'll see if it has an effect on autonomous vehicles as well, Waymos and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So, hey, listen, I would love to keep going. We are out of time. It's 5:59. I want to thank Congressman Walkinshaw, Chair Jefferson, Vice Chair Turner, Supervisor Alcorn. I will turn it back over to you, Ray. A good discussion as always, and take us home.
Thank you, Adam.
Adam, thank you very much for moderating this really rich discussion. So nice to see you all, these very bright faces who are full of information. And as an interloper to the region, it's a real learning experience for me. There are a lot of similarities between what I'm hearing here and where just spent 35 years in Boston. So, but the weather's nicer here, and and the southern cooking is a little bit more tasty as well. So I'm enjoying my time here, and thank you very much. It's been a pleasure to listen to you and to meet you all. I appreciate you coming. For all those that logged on, thank you as well. Tell all your friends that they can listen to this as this has been recorded as well, and we'll have this up on our website so that everybody gets to enjoy this rich discussion. And again, safe holidays, safe travels. We'll see you all soon.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks all.